everybody, welcome to another Non-duality with Dawn Garland. Non-duality is the end of the psychological self, the actual self, the physical self, the end of everything, and yet the appearance of everything, the end of space and time, and which all sounds quite interesting, unless you've had this happen, in which case it is interesting too, but it's also very, very ordinary. So it is simply coming into where you are. It's simply life living itself. It's peace. It's the peace that passes understanding. It's kind of coming home. And it has some wonderful upsides to it, a dropping away of defenses, and opening. The heart is open, and that is experienced as not being vulnerable in the ordinary sense, but actually it's just strength and it's natural. So it's a loss in a sense of it's a loss of the self, it's a loss of memory. It's no longer owned by anything. This is no longer owned by anything. So life is free, and that aspect of it, which is the seeing of emptiness, is not necessarily experienced as a great thing. It's not the completion. It can be experienced as a loss, but there's also it's non-attachment. It can be the loss of motivation and drive and belief. The core of belief is ripped out, so belief is seen through. So there's a chance for a reconfiguration of belief in the kind of relative, as opposed to the absolute. Of course, it's just oneness. This is just oneness. There's an opportunity to kind of start over, and a lot of the old identity, because it's the end of identification in the radical sense of there's no one here, there's no one there, but the actual individual identity of the character who lives its life, no one living it, can be reconfigured, can be a new start. It can be a kind of clarification of the sort of original self, maybe the kind of probably a tendency to go towards being more authentic and being more true to what you actually wanted in the first place as a little child when you came in with certain qualities. But the seeing of fullness, which is the complete seeing, so there's the emptiness, which is nothing here, nothing there, no self, no time, no space, but the seeing of everything is love, and that's unconditional, and that is experienced as a great blessing. There's a lot of gratitude for that. It's the end of seeking. It's everything is realized in that moment. So henceforth, it's a complete seeing. The dropping away is permanent. There's a great relief that's not experienced as a relief because it's too natural. There's no sense of this happening in time. It's beyond time. It's the timeless. So there's just a stepping into groundedness, love, and there's a desire to rest in that, because it is rest, and for most of us we haven't experienced total rest, a total cessation of looking elsewhere, diverting through pleasure, through trying to fulfill a role, through trying to, whatever it is, achieve something, because it is seen that everything is already perfect. Perfection is visually seen as well. It's the aliveness of everything can be seen literally. So beauty can be seen in its pure form, which is everything. It's beautiful. Everything is already perfected. There's nothing missing from anything. So that the normal kind of conditioned responses to even beauty fall away. So there's a joy in meeting others after this. Just you're meeting through whatever you want to call this, like being, or it's a connecting through spirit, if you like, or consciousness, or whatever. All those terms I don't use it, like they have a tendency to create an object in the minds of seekers, but there is a connecting beyond the personality that seems to go on. So there's no otherness, because everything is home, so how can there be another? And time can go on, of course, time in the timeless, because the individual lives in time in a sense, although time will be experienced very differently, because it is a construct, I guess, because it's seen as not who you are, because time really is a thought and a feeling too, but it's ultimately real, but it's how we experience life. It's not like you be completely discombobulated, although some may argue for that. I don't know. But so yeah, suffering can arise still, but it's arising for no one, and it does not necessarily make you into a psychologically whole person in that sense. And I think we have a sense of this, maybe hearing a poem, and we project it out there. We see it maybe in the, I don't know, someone, a singer or a songwriter. You listen to something and it seems to have that sort of something that seems larger than life, something that seems complete in a moment because it's come from a flow state or someone in that state, and we kind of want that, but we don't know what it is. We're always seeking for that in ourselves, like trying to complete the individual. Of course, that doesn't do it, because this is beyond the individual. But yeah, the creativity, anything like that, it's dependent on an object, but it's still a sort of, in the internal state, is commensurate with that. Like it's the same. No, it's not actually. It's similar. Nothing's really the same. So yeah, life as experiences. No one here literally. And the mind can be completely blown. Of course, there may not have been a mind to start off with. That's quite rare. That happens in very rare cases. And very occasionally you'll get someone who, we're born into this, we're born into wholeness, so occasionally you get someone whose sense of self is never completely being created. It's never complete form, so there can be this sense of, what are all these people doing? Why are they all taking it so seriously and feeling a bit sort of strange and not fitting in? That can happen sometimes, but it's quite rare. Because mostly we're condemned to live and suffer in time, and so it's also the death of authority, although that can be a process that continues. So things can continue to fall away. They tend to. That's my experience and the experience of other people who are talking about this, which is very freeing, but also can be quite alienating in a sense as well. So what else is there?
do you mean by the death of authority?
The death of thinking that somebody else knows something, quite literally, or also that the one in the front. I suppose it's the death of projection onto the other. Like, projection can continue, but particularly that projection onto, I suppose, the spiritual teacher or the non-duality speaker or any kind of hierarchy in that, because it's realised that everybody is an asshole at heart. Look, yeah, like some people may speak in a way that seems intellectual, but that even, I think intelligence is a kind of appearance. Like, some people seem intelligent. I don't, in a way, I think over time that can fall away. Like, I think it dissolves a lot, or continues to dissolve, because I don't think it necessarily happens if you're still got doubts in your mind. I think that's a problem with doubts, because the mind, if it's still going or comes and goes, it will still be reflecting on what's happened, and so the body, everything experienced, nothing here, and then you're still stuck, and there's like subtle projection can go on. So you might meet a non-duality speaker and look for validation, am I awake, and experiences it. No, you wouldn't be asking the question, who's asking the question, and you're like, shame, and go back into thinking, oh, I wish I hadn't asked that, I feel really embarrassed because there must be something missing. So you could get stuck in I think some people I know some people get stuck in that, and also if they've had teachers they had on a pedestal before, there might be some remnant of that. I've seen that. So because there's something about the projection onto someone at the front, not always, but not invariably, but most of the time, maybe that they seem to possess something. And I think projection goes on, like visually. Like we have a tendency to see the person talking about spiritual stuff as beatific, seemingly empty, seemingly like grounded and composed and all this stuff, and you have no idea. I mean, that's not necessarily the case. I know that from knowing people and knowing myself. So it's just fascinating. The more it falls away, the more it just seems like the whole hierarchical structure in society is so much bullshit in a way. Not all of it, but like, and there's an acceptance of where you're at, and that's perfect. So in a sense, the hierarchical thing is collapsed in that anyway. Like, and I think there's something about the awake one who's awake in the head and not awake in the body is not, can be seen for what it is as well. That's very different. Like, that can still go on. It doesn't mean like it permeates or it heals psychological splits. This doesn't necessarily do that. Like, psychological wholeness seems to be another kettle of fish. Like, because a lot of what we assume is healthy, whatever, is based on what we learnt, and the conditioning continues. Although some of it falls away in the seeing of this for sure, but not all of it. And it doesn't really end.
When you say awake in the head but not in the body, is that kind of somebody who knows kind of what to say in terms of, sounding like a teacher, but maybe how they live is different? Is that what that looks like?
Well, I suppose I meant more like someone who is cut off emotionally, but they're awakened head, so they can spout what they're actually experiencing. One is no one here, etc., but they're they're dead from the neck down. And I don't think that necessarily heals, depending on the wounding. That's how I see it. I might be wrong, but that's definitely how I see it.
The awakening isn't necessarily a healing of that split, that kind of state.
Yeah, I mean, defenses are blown, but it's not the whole thing, right? I mean, if you were not capable of love initially, I don't know that it makes you capable of personal love. I don't think it does.
Yeah.
So there may be more compassion, but particularly with the abstract, you might pour loads of money into charities but you may not be so compassionate with your nearest and dearest. Or I just find it endlessly fascinating, the truth of it, because it's the seeing a oneness. What's it got to do with the evolution of the character? I mean, it's got very little to do with that, in a sense. There is groundedness, and that's amazing. So if you're slightly barking, and we kind of all are, so that's grounded. There's the groundedness, and there's that as well. So it's different, but so you're not at war. In a sense, you're not at war with your madness. Maybe something like that. I think there's that. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, they're two very separate topics, aren't they? The evolution of the character or the self, or there's, and that's duality, isn't it? There's the the divine being that is oneness, and then there's the human persists, doesn't it? Neither one disappears. I think this is just a kind of a being able to see both at once, and that they both exist, and hopefully both can awareness of each other might help in managing the evolution of the human, of the human individual. It offers a bit more slack in terms of being able to, do your own internal work, for sure.
Not everyone's interested in doing that, which is interesting too, which is fair enough. I mean, I can understand that too, and I think there's a period following this shift that you couldn't care less about that. I mean, it may not be like that for everyone as well. There's just, because you just want to be in the restful state, just be in the bliss, if that's what you're experiencing. It doesn't even occur to you. And if there's, because it seems, well, because it's just so awesome. I don't know, maybe, I think, initially, because it's different from what went before. I think there's always a before and after, but it's more obvious in some than others. And if there is, there's less doubt, perhaps.
I mean, you mentioned doubt earlier on, and actually because as you speak, there are certain words that register with me. I'm like, oh yeah, that word sticks out, and I have some kind of that relationship to it. Yeah, and when you said doubt, I was like, I mean, for me, it was the end of doubt, for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
100%. The end of doubt. But that doesn't. That's nice.
Yeah, and it's not like that for everyone.
It still doesn't say the human is fixed. Again, that's a whole other thing, isn't it? But yeah. It was very much the end of doubt.
you know, and all, but like just in regard of the awakening, or in regard of everything, like
in regard of everything, really, of the importance of anything, I think. You know,
okay, so slightly
that kind of being uncertain of my place in the world, or what the world is, or uncertain of myself, and you know, kind of who and what I am, and it's not that I kind of, you know, received kind of all the answers like illuminated, kind of, you know, written, but just everything that kind of was uncertainty of any import left, you know, and the questions that remain, I was like, oh yeah, well, there's questions, isn't there? I'm alright with that.
Yeah, well, maybe, I suppose I would say it in terms of like, so there's a kind of radical acceptance of everything, including the doubt, so it's not important in that sense. Like, if something arises, why wouldn't it be there? Like, it's not, doesn't have the significance it had before, maybe.
I think, but any doubt is of the mind. I think that's what's kind of, you know, that's what comes to be known, and that's just your state of being. Then it's just any doubt is of the mind, and well, the mind's just a doubting creature. I know that about it, and it's not, you know, it's not particularly important.
I doubt, therefore I am.
Yeah, why not, right? Yeah, I mean, it's the mind's nature is to doubt, right? Mm-hmm. Is to seek questions and problems, and conflict. So actually the content of his questions, and so what?
So how does doubt differ from skepticism?
A skeptical attitude in, well, that's in belief, isn't it? Like, so you hear stuff, that's more like an authority, isn't it? Like, you hear stuff and there's like, well, maybe, but maybe not, and doubt. Well, skepticism is a kind of doubt, but it's to do with ideas, isn't it? And so skeptical about, I don't know, maybe an authority, what somebody's saying about something. Maybe it's true, maybe it's bullshit, maybe someone's playing you or something like that. I don't know. I think being skeptical is a really healthy quality, because we're all too credulous, but doubt, I mean, doubt's very individual, isn't it? And you know, you say I doubt I'm awake, to some radical non-dualist, they'll say he is the one who is doubting. Fuck off with that. I don't know what the difference is. Do you know? I don't fucking know. I'm just trying to think.
I think they're kind of a bit interchangeable at some level.
Yeah, maybe.
I think you can't have one without the other, really, because if you're being skeptical about something, then you have doubts about something, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think skepticism is also of the mind, right? I mean, I'm skeptical about anything outside.
Okay, so you go into a situation and you're getting biofeedback from a situation. It might be a setting in nature, it might be a room full of people.
Right.
And your body receives some kind of biofeedback, which makes you just stop and reassess, or observe a bit more deeply, or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not that everything is on the go all the time. It's not a green light for everything. You have amber lights and red lights as well that you experience. I would say I have an amber light and a red light to everything, in a way. I kind of almost, I don't trust my mind's interpretation of anything. So when when you start getting kind of stuff occurring in the body, then it's like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of almost more real, but then again, is that a product
product of my own.
So you may have people whose bodies are awake and they feel stuff, but they don't understand it. They just, so they go more to like an intuitive level.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean by that?
No, but it's beyond understanding. So
Yeah.
in the sense that, like, the body may be awake, the doubt may come up, but it's still, the awakeness is known. Like, it's just known. It's also known as the doubt is known. Like, I think it's a different kind of doubting, because it can't be. Understanding is just the mind. This has got nothing to do with it. So it's not like the mind needs to understand. It really doesn't need to understand. There's nothing to understand. It's beyond that. So it's just, in a sense, in a really normal sense, it's experiential. You're experiencing life differently, or as it is, simply. So if the mind has understood this and the body hasn't, it just means you're not awake, I think, because it's just beyond that. I mean, it's just ideas in the head, intellectual understanding. I mean, it means nothing. It just means it hasn't been seen.